welcome once again to the Dwarven Tavern. I am Lyric, and this is my trusty sidekick Maximilian, and we are going to be doing a review today. This is a topic that I have always had a personal interest in, and that is when you fight monsters, and when you fight beasts and strange fantasy things and things from mythology, like sphinxes or minotaurs, however you pronounce that, or owlbears, or, things that you find in a classic campaign. What happens if you come across these things as children? Or mayhaps the beast you have just slain had a few cubs in their den, or that phase cat suddenly has a kitten flashing from here to there. What are those creatures, and how do you go about helping them or taking care of them if you're too kind-hearted to slay them as you did their parents? Shame on you. Or, what happens to the creatures that aren't usually displayed on the backs of DM screens or in Dragonomicons or the like? What happens to the creatures like this one that started off as a young creature? So, that is where the Baby Bestiary comes in, Volume 1, because right there is Volume 2, and I am excited for both of them. This is a book done by Metalweave Games. You can find them at metalweavegames.com or on Facebook at facebook.com/Baby Bestiary. This book goes for $24.99, worth every cent in my humble opinion. And just reading off of the back, this is Discover the Adorable, because there is some really good artwork in this, and I am excited to show you, but first let's read the back. In a world of myth and magic, great heroes vanquish terrible monsters and earn the place in legend. But what about the babies left behind? This is the book. This book is the first exploration of the new kind of adventure, the raising of young monsters to become loyal companions, beloved friends, or fearsome guardians. If you're looking for something novel to spice up a fantasy role-playing campaign, or simply want to see a different side to the creatures of fantasy art, which I've always wanted, the Baby Bestiary book has all the monstrous cuteness you could want, and boy does it! This was funded by over 600 aficionados of animal affection on Kickstarter in 2014. This book joins the Baby Bestiary 2015 calendar and a new line of products by Metalweave Games. I did not know there was a calendar, and now I want one. The Baby Bestiary handbook will add some awe to your coffee table ornaments and squee to your... Wait, hang on. Let me try that again. The Baby Bestiary handbook will add some awe to your coffee table ornaments and squee to your players squelching through dark dungeons. Dank dungeons. Let me say it right. That would certainly help. So, the Baby Bestiary, as you can see, it has an owlbear and a griffon playing. And this was also done by Andreas Walters, who I assume works for Metalweave Games. Also, thanks, guys. We appreciate it. Love you guys already. So, checking out the book, it already starts off with some glorious artwork. Lovely pages. There is some credits for you guys, including the authors. There are a lot of you. I won't name you individually, but congratulations. This is an amazing book. Then the contents, creator's note. And look at all of those Kickstarter backer shout-outs. It would help if I could read. So, there's a lot of people who was very invested in this book. I'm not going to read any of them. But thanks, guys. This is an amazing thing that you have helped fund. It looks fantastic. So, this book starts out as kind of an introduction on how to be a beast master. And just reading the paragraphs of You, the Beastmaster, the way that it's written is very engrossing. I immediately wanted to read a book with this type of detail. Let me just give you an example. It matters not how you became drawn to beasts and monsters. What matters is how it changes you. When you master beasts, you also master yourself. Very zen. as my mom would say. You teach yourself control and patience, and through you, the beast learns the same. Their animalistic nature gives way to human nature, and the benefits that it entails. Don't be fooled. It is not real intelligence. Well, that's subjective. Where was I? But rather a replacing of animal instincts. Oh, though it may not seem like it, but rather replacing of animal instincts with human instincts. While the most loyal squire is able to explain their devotion to their lord, the lord's mount is not. Oh, okay. That sentence confused me for a second. But with logic also comes a possibility of subversion, which is why most lords trust their mounts more than their squire. That is a very good point. To the accomplished beastmaster, the relationships with the monsters that keep soon outshine any human relationships they could have, which is why Maximilian appears in my videos more than anybody else does. So, that's just a small tidbit of the paragraphs explaining how to use this book. The other paragraphs include finding your baby beast, which this can be either stumbling upon or from another beastmaster, or the consequences of killing the parent beast. The baby intelligence, which it goes into detail as, how smart is the baby, is it trainable, so on and so forth. Rearing a baby beast, as there is not necessarily the same level of complication depending on which beast you want. The baby pterodactyl, which is not in this book, but this is an example off the top of my head. The baby pterodactyl may be a little more difficult than the puppy blink dog. The blink puppy. So it goes into that as well. Baby beasts in the city, because not necessarily all terrain is accepting and forgiving of rearing a baby beast. Training your beast, which goes into even more detail, because there are things that you can do to train your beast. And this is, it's just a little more details. It relates it more to like training your dog in real life. And then lastly, the beasts, well not lastly, but beasts as mounts, which I'll read a little bit of that one. I once knew a dwarf named Torvald Gloryhammer, that's a lame name, who decided he wanted to raise a gray render, that's also lame, so he could ride it into battle. Actually, that would be pretty awesome. Despite the bond he formed with the beast, the giant two-legged form just wasn't designed for the task. Several cure spells and long recovery period later, Torvald decided his next mount would be a warhorse instead. Good on you, you stubby dwarf, you. Let this be a cautionary tale. Many trainers get into the business of raising baby beasts for the sole purpose of one day using it as a mount, but they don't always know what they're getting into. That's very selfish of you. You should raise the baby beast because you want to raise the baby beast and not because you want to use it. Although, at the same time, to have a beneficiary relationship, both from you and them, rating it as a mount would probably be the best thing that you could use it for. You need to consider your potential mount's suitability for bearing a rider. Blink dogs, for example, make terrible mounts. You only get about 3 feet or 1 meter before they go ethereal and you wind up on the ground. Sphinxes tend to be too smart and proud to let anyone ride them, and gelatinous cubes... well, let's just say if you can train a gargantuan blob of jelly to be your ride. I'll eat my hat. That's from the book, not me. Some mounts are challenging to train, but worth the effort. It can be difficult to get all 3 of the Cerberus' head to cooperate, but you can train one to carry you into battle. Then you have a strong ally on your side. Can you imagine that? You're trained one of the heads to be a mount in battle, while one's playing with a chew toy and the other is whimpering for attention. Many dragons can be convinced to bear you as a rider, but they can be finicky and often require something in return because they are dragons. And a lot of people forget that dragons have a mind of their own. They are very intelligent beasts. Finally, nightmares, with their flaming hooves and smoking nostrils, while some of the coolest and most terrifying mounts on the battlefield are as ornery as a wild stallion and twice as difficult to domesticate, because they're setting everything you own on fire. Once you've chosen a suitable species to be your mount, you make sure you commit to training it for this purpose. Not all beasts are naturally inclined to let someone ride atop their back and charge headfirst into a horde of orcs. It takes planning, practice, and patience to raise your baby for this task. So if you're not up for it, then perhaps you should choose a simpler trick to teach it, such as rolling over or fetching sticks. This author is snarky, and I like it. So, that's a very good point to bring up. Not all species in this book are made to be mounts, and it takes a lot of practice to train that animal to be a mount. So this is kind of more of a campaign setting than it is, I mean, it's bestiary because it's got a crap ton of beasts that you can train, but this is kind of like you roll up a character and then you go to this to play your game, because you don't even need to fight anything. You may fight something to begin the campaign and then end up with its orphaned child, you monster. But then it goes into, this is the sole purpose of your game, is to raise this infant creature into be something that can both, give you what you, or rather, you can give it what you took away from it, and that's a parent. Or it can, that is adorable, sorry, I flipped ahead and I shouldn't have. You can get from it the love and the compassion that you may receive from an animal in real life. Or, you could just be raising a mount, which is you're selfish. But, moving on. Stages of developments. There are, different monsters in here, so obviously there are going to be different stages of developments. Probably an elemental grows a lot faster than, say, a leviathan. Just flipping ahead a little bit for an example. So, baby represents the youngest of creature's specific species, but that does not necessarily mean the beast has lived for several years. Hasn't lived for several years. Because again, these monsters may live different lengths of time. And then of course there's protecting your baby beast, and the more important one, returning it to the wild. Some beasts may not be suited for returning to the wild. Some beasts may need to be returned to the wild. And then, there are some beasts that, may be returned to the wild, but are smart enough to know that you are its family and decides to come back. So that's the beginning of the book. It talks about all of the important details of raising a child, monster, in parentheses. And it talks about, the overall aspect of each of these creatures. Going on in further, the first one is the basilisk lizard, which hopefully that doesn't create too much of a glare. This artwork is phenomenal. I love the artwork of the book. All of the creatures are adorable. Oh my god. Like, for example, the kitsune pup, it's pronounced kitsune, pronounce it with a ne if you could, not kitsune. It's a kitsune pup. There's a kitsune, and there's her child. I don't know if that's necessarily her child. Let's just look at a couple of these. There's the Cobalt Kid, because it's not called anything else in particular. And if you'll notice in each one of these images, well, most of them, there is an adult in the background, which gives a good example of how small these creatures are and how big their parents are. So that's another good aspect of this artwork. So here is a Minotaur calf. It is a very cute one. He's trying so hard to be menacing. Isn't he just so cute? And look at the gigantic hand of the parent in the background. That's terrifying. I love it. And then this is the owlbear cubs that were on the cover. Ooh, there we go. And then the owlbear in the background, which looks more like just an owl than anything. So, that's just a few examples of the artwork. I will, I've mentioned the link earlier, but they have a lot more beautiful artwork on their website, so please check them out. Linked below. And then this is probably my favorite of this, the book, is the Sphinx kitten, because I love kittens. And I think that's a very tender moment. And that's something that we don't really think about when we play role-playing games, is tender moments between the monsters that we kill and their children. Who is the real monster? Getting deep in this. So, with each of these monsters, there is a warning if it is extremely dangerous or not. Egg care or general care, training, what happens when it is a child, how to make it bigger and better. Let's visit the centaur foal before we do anything else, because this one is a really good example of a mythology that we have always been curious about. So a lot of people have broached this topic on the internet, and that is, how does the child centaur, how does it grow? Because if you think about it, A baby, when it is newborn, cannot even lift up its head, but the foal can start walking within minutes of its birth. This talks about how that may or may not be necessarily true for this book. I mean, you can obviously make up your own rules and laws to your own mythology, but we're going with this right now because this is more important than that. Going into it, I'm just going to read a clip from it. This is not the full paragraph describing it, but it'll get into the birth and how it starts walking. So, the two centaurs perform a sacred marriage rite and are then bonded for life. The new husband spends an entire lunar cycle with their bride, then returns to the outer tribes, finding opportunities to visit their children and wives whenever possible. Pregnancy lasts for 16 months! God! After which the mother's herd prepares a secure place with plenty of straw, water, and blankets. The eldest females assist with the birth, while the younger family members walk a vigil around the birthplace, singing songs and making gifts for the young foal. Unlike horses or humanoids, centaurs are not born head first. This is the part I don't really like. Their unique anatomy has the infant emerge horse chest first, with their human torso laid across the back. So the head and rear hips appear together. It says a most unusual and privileged sight. No kidding. And then it goes into general care. Centaurs are omnivorous, though they tend to prefer a vegetarian diet, leaving cooked meats for special occasions. Unlike, that sounds appropriate. Unlike horses, a centaur cannot walk within hours of birth. This is approaching the topic I mentioned earlier. It takes until about a month old for it to get its legs underneath it. Once the foals find their walking legs, though, they quickly pick up running as well, though they tend to trip over their feet until they can master their hooves. Even more so than human babies, centaur foals bounce. Their hair also grows much faster than that of a human, producing full manes and tails within 6 months. So by 6 months, they have a full head of hair. Now, it's important to remember that although a newborn centaur may have the appearance of a 5-year-old human, they have not developed any language skills, which they acquire at the same rate as humans. Instead of making baby noises commonly recognized by humans, foals make a soft whickering noise that is pleasant to the ear. Oh my god, I want to hear a baby centaur. Oh, that's so cute. Once they hit puberty, all fat is shed and the centaurs become lanky, gangling tangle of limbs. Both sexes are subject to violent mood swings and physical impulses because horse. A frequent pastime involves wrestling with arms and forelegs by rearing up. And this is all talked about from the point of view of the Beastmaster writing it. Once I was caring for a set of twins, I was nearly trampled on a daily basis. Although young, they still are stronger than you think, so expect buffeting and bruises from even the calmest foal. Until they reach 9 years of age, the children are cared for by all mothers of the tribe. When they have their first coming-of-age party, the adolescents begin to learn the more mature aspects of their culture. Mares will remain with their mother's herd, raising their children next to their siblings and cousins. Stallions will begin to spending time with the adult males, learning how to patrol and mark territory up until they reach the sexual maturity, at which point they will claim their own land and prepare to compete for female attention at the next Nadam, which I did not talk about. The Nadam is a highly cultural tournament. Ooh! Lovely. There's a little tidbit at the very bottom saying pregnant centaur urine is highly prized on the black market due to its use in gender-changing spells and potions for postmenopausal women. It is usually consumed in powder form. Ugh. Care should be taken, as some individuals react to its ingestion by growing a long, silky mane at the length of their spine. That is amazing. Oh, I love it. I love it. It seems like all of the creatures have little tidbits on the bottoms. So, Cerberi can survive the loss of either outer head, but should not succumb to infection. Should they not succumb to infection or blood loss, but not the removal of the center head. And An old demon hunter I once knew cauterized the stump of his loyal wounded companion with the only thing he had visible, his metal holy symbol. He had available, not visible. Forever after, the missing head would reappear as a burst of eldritch green flame whenever demons were near. Huh. That's interesting. So, like, oh my god, it's so cute! I can't look at this book without, like, dweebing a little bit. So all of the monsters in this book, I don't even want to call them monsters, I want to call them animals, because even though they are monsters, I feel like that's dehumanizing them too much. So, it seems like all of the animals in here have tidbits on the bottom saying, note, this is what this thing that they have is useful for. Well, except for the manticore cub, which, whatever. So, well, not all of them. Most of them have little tidbit notes that you can have. A kitsune's pelt and 9 foxtails are prized by the unscrupulous hunters. Unscrupulous? Unscrupulous? I read words. I don't speak words. Collectors and practitioners of dark magic. The pelt and its tails are luxurious, soft, and desired as cloaks. Practitioners of dark magic believe that the cloak and tails can be used in a secret ritual to turn the one wearing the coat into the kitsune themselves. No such ritual is confirmed to exist, but this does not stop the hunting of kitsune. That makes me very angry. Because I don't think the magic would transition. I don't like that folklore. So I am a studier of Japanese culture and language, and I did hear something very similar while I was in Japan. I can't confirm it, that mythology already exists, but that makes total sense to me. However, if you're hunting the kitsune for their kitsune pelt, why would you want to wear it and become a kitsune yourself? Because that makes you the hunted. So, like, dark wizards don't necessarily think everything through. So, aside from all the monsters that I have not talked about because I don't want to, drone this video on forever, check this out yourself because it is amazing. I give the baby Bestiary, which unfortunately has a few scratches on it already from my enthusiastic viewing of it. The baby Bestiary gets a 5 out of 5 axes. I love it so very much. The artwork is amazing. The detail in this book is phenomenal. The artistic and authoric value of this book is scrumptious. I love it. It's scrumptious. It's scrumptious. The word I wanted to say was scrumptious. Everybody who backed this on Kickstarter, thank you so much. This book is amazing. I love it. So that's 5 out of 5 from the Dwarven Tavern. Go check it out yourself. Find it on metalweavesgames.com, metalweavgames.com, Facebook/Baby Bestiary. Go buy it. It is worth every cent, and I love it. I fully recommend it. So, on that note, on the baby notes, on the cutes, ahs, and squeeze, I am Lyric with the Dwarven Tavern, wishing for you to want for nothing but adventure, and at first I feared it, then I charged. Thank you guys for watching, and we will see you next time.